Well, welcome to the Unstoppable Freedom Podcast. I'm Jimmy Page. Well, the school year is in full swing with kids back on public, charter, private, and college campuses all across the country. And perhaps the biggest proof of that is that fall football season is rolling with Friday night lights in Texas and Saturday afternoon games. And while we're super excited to have kids back in schools and back in the books, it's easy to be lulled into a false sense of security. That's why today's show is all about keeping your kids safe at school. Today's guest is Brian Stutes. He's a Navy corpsman, paramedic, tactical medic for SWAT post-military service. He's a defensive tactic instructor for state and federal agencies. And I met him because he was the firearms and tactics instructor for a group of called the Acumen Performance Group for a leadership event that I did. He started TAC Response Solutions 8 years ago with the goal of improving survivability in active school shooting attacks, both in schools and also in churches. And he's an expert on school safety. So, Brian, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks, Jim. It's good to be here.
Yeah, man, I'll never forget, when you kind of took the point at our leadership event and you were teaching what I would consider some pretty high-level leaders and maybe some more new leaders, some emerging leaders, how to handle firearms, why this was important. And, you were an expert instructor, no doubt about it. And people went from, in some cases, a nominal understanding of how to do it, maybe even some fear around weapons, to more comfort around it and more understanding of why it was necessary. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
That was a good time. Of course, it's always a great time contracting with APG and the boys. And that experience there, to be able to take a lot of the guys with your group and then some of the females that were not experienced, were very intimidated, and to be able to take them from that and within a couple hours transform them into, I wouldn't say competent, but they understood the basics of a firearm. They understood safety. They understood mechanics, grip, and hopefully they were able to take that and build off of it. But it's, what we do is always so gratifying, whether we're there working with clients like y'all or whether I'm with my company, TAC Response Solutions, and we're working with teachers, corporate clients, security teams, law enforcement, SWAT, whatever it is, being able to watch that transformation, whether it's a 2 hour, a 2 day, a 2 week, that's really where the magic is. And it's awesome to be able to be part of that.
Yeah. And I believe, like our founding fathers believed, that, your first natural right is the right to self-protection, self-preservation. You have to have the ability to defend yourself against threats. And that's why the Second Amendment is so important. That's why it's so important that we take our own personal safety so seriously. But what I was amazed at in that room, we were at an outdoor range. It was amazing. I would say at least a third of that group was probably super hesitant. Like, I don't know about this. And by the end, in fact, we saw in some of the competitions, some of that group were the best. They were the most proficient.
Yeah.
How is that possible? How is that even possible?
It's just being, as long as someone's open-minded, and also, APG, which you mentioned, who I contract to, and they're some of the best guys, all special operations staff. I don't even know the amount of combined service between all of us, but it's phenomenal. And just putting all of us together, we all have the same mindset. We have the same goal. We've all got really good experience. And so we put that together and put it with a group like y'all who came in wanting to learn. We're open-minded and said, hey, okay, teach us. We're a blank slate. And some really, really good things happen whenever you do that. So, it's a team effort. And I loved it. We actually did one earlier this year, very similar with another company, a large group of big CEOs for big, I can't name the company, but for a large company here in the U.S. And, man, we were at that same range. God, it was a good time. And that is probably one of the nicest ranges, outdoor public ranges I've been to in the United States, right there in Carson City.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, I will say this too. Like, I've taken a lot of courses. I've grown in my proficiency over many, many years to protect my family. I remember a conversation I had with my wife probably, 15 or 20 years ago, where I said to her, listen, she was kind of a little hesitant about having guns in the house. And I remember saying, well, listen, if someone did breach our home, did come into our home, and they had more firepower than I have, and I'm not capable of stopping them because of the firepower they have, you can't take away my ability to defend you and the kids. And that conversation was one of those moments like, hey, wait a minute, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
We want to be prepared for whatever comes to our door. And I remember at that training, you were so good at breaking down the fundamentals so that it took some of the fear away from people to say, hey, firearms are not something necessarily to be feared. They are to be respected because of the power that they have. But they're not really to be feared. And if once you know how the system works and how to handle it and how to make those guns safe, it really does change the game, and it changed people's perspective about what it means to have a firearm.
100%. And we used to always say, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Just keep it simple, keep it basic. That's what's going to win the fight every single time.
Yeah. And I've discovered, first of all, you are an exceptional instructor. I mean, best of the best.
Thank you.
And it makes sense because of your military background, of course, but I think you have a gift and I think that's why your company is so important, because when you bring somebody like you in to work with a group, especially of inexperienced people with firearms, they're going to know, you're going to speak a language that they understand, that they can understand, and that they do understand why it's important, each of the components. What I've discovered over so much time, though, Stutes, is that there's a difference between knowledge and proficiency. There's a difference between range ready and tactically prepared. And it does. And I'm a big proponent of increasing your proficiency over time through time with trainers like you.
Absolutely. And, we see that, speaking on the, just being range ready and being on that flat range, that's great, getting those reps in. But you got to make sure you're getting good reps. You can train Tony Blauer, who I've worked with in the past, phenomenal when it comes to self-defense and the psychological and physiological aspects of a violent encounter. He's got a saying, and it basically goes that you can get really good at training at the wrong thing. If you put enough bad reps in at the range and nobody's helping you, or you've got somebody who doesn't necessarily have much experience, real world experience, sometimes you just get the wrong thing, and it's easy to do. We see it with law enforcement a lot. We see them in stress shooting, stressful events. They're going 2-3 mags deep in an engagement. Somebody just sent me one the other day, 7 yard engagement, 2 mags deep. And the subject was still alive. And it was, there's a difference between being tactically prepared, being stressfully prepared, or just shooting at a flat range. A piece of paper doesn't shoot back. Even a timer only creates a certain amount of stress. And then you need to induce stress, you need to induce malfunctions, and you need to start having to solve problems at a rapid pace.
Yeah, everything changes under stress, under duress. I mean, you add that pressure. It's like an elite athlete, right? When athletes are competing, it's fine when you're in the practice. You can. In fact, some people perform better in practice than the games, but the real greats are the ones that elevate their performance under pressure. And what I've discovered is you learn very quickly the gaps that you have when you're put under stress, and all of a sudden you can't clear the magazine, and you've got to jam, and you've got to miss. I mean, it is stressful, and you realize that those situations are really going to be life and death. I mean, if that was an actual altercation, that's why you have to be prepared. And you said this, I think many years ago, Cal Ripken Jr. said that practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. So whatever you're practicing is going to ingrain that in your natural response. So you've got to learn it the right way and then practice it the right way. Hey, let's shift gears a little bit to, we're back at school. And, it's interesting because you haven't heard a lot about school safety. And here we are in, near the end of September, heading into October, and active shooter attacks on school campuses, they become more common. And let's talk a little bit about those active attacks. What haven't we learned? We've had the recent shooting at the Nashville shooter. And in some ways, it's believed that he chose this school partly because it was a gun-free zone, which drives me absolutely bonkers. In fact, there was something he said or something he wrote that said that he knew there would be virtually no opposition at this school. And there were other reasons for the shooting. But let's talk about the shootings between Sandy Hook way back in 2012, 2012, to Nashville of 2023. What have we learned? What haven't we learned?
The first thing that really caught my attention when they released the video, and Nashville did a really good job for one thing, those officers that responded, that was textbook perfect. They went in, they hunted, they found the threat, they eliminated the threat, end of story. And it was not a Uvalde, Texas. And being from Texas, that one hurt. Like, that one was embarrassing for just the entire professional field. So Nashville did a really good job. Those officers, I don't know who trained them. They did a hell of a job. They learned, they went in, they worked, solved the problem, end of story, and they saved lives. I think 3 children and 3 adults maybe died in that, but it could have been a lot worse. Those guys went in and went to work, and they were great. The first thing we noticed was the shooter came in through a side door, didn't come in through a main door, came in through a side door, but did you notice how they came in? Shot the glass out, right? Locked doors don't secure buildings, and physical security is a big thing. We just had one of my local schools here. I don't do work for, I won't do work for them, but they put in a big new school, $70-something billion, $1 million bond. They put in fences. Fences don't work, by the way. And the superintendent made a comment that caught my eye. He said in a news interview, he said, well, we have bullet-resistant glass on the front of the schools. So you're telling me we don't have it on the sides or the back? Like, that's just, I'm like, wow, guys, that's genius, but they have vape detectors in the bathroom, so we're safe, guys. Yeah. Man,
it's upside down. It is flat upside down. And the fact that he's announcing this is really troubling, right? Because he's essentially announcing the vulnerabilities that the school has. I mean, you have to be.
So the thing that we noticed is, if you look back at Sandy Hook, every time we train a client, whether it's a school, doesn't matter what age, whether it's church, law enforcement, federal, state, military, corporate clients, private clients, it doesn't matter. We always take a case study from a previous event that is relative to what the client needs. And we say, okay, here's what happened and what can we learn? We can't say that somebody did something wrong in the past because we weren't there. And we can't change the past, but we can sure learn from it. Yeah. So if you look at Sandy Hook in December of 2012, they just upgraded, locked doors. They had a camera, and you were buzzed in for security, okay? That was their big thing. They were upgrading. Great. Problem is, the shooter shot the side glass out, walked right in, ended up killing 20 children, I think ages 6 to 9, I believe 6 adults in less than 5 minutes. And ended up, when police responded, they heard one final shot, and they believe that's when the person took their life. But they shot out glass. So 11 years ago, come this December, somebody shot out glass, killed 20 children, 6 adults in 5 minutes. Easy access into a campus. What happened in Nashville? Shot out glass, walked right in and started killing.
Unbelievable.
We've got to do better than that. I go to schools, we do threat assessments, and the amount of schools that do not have at least a 3M film. 3M makes a film, it's not bulletproof, it's not bullet resistant. Bullets will travel through it, but it keeps the glass intact when it breaks. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to create time and distance. Something big that we teach. If we can create time and distance between the shooter and the innocent, the children, the teachers, the church parishioners, whoever we're trying to protect, create time and distance. If you shoot at glass that's got 3M film, and I'm just using 3M as an example, we have no affiliation with them. It's slowing the shooter down from making entry into the building, because inside the building is where all the potential victims are. We need to separate that. We need to create a barrier, and we need to create time and distance to allow somebody, a good guy with a gun, to come fix the problem, right? Yeah. But you'd be surprised how many don't. And it's and here's the scary part. Nashville showed us that in almost 10 and a half years, we didn't learn anything there. I believe that Nashville was chosen. There was, I think, 3 schools that were potential targets. It was chosen because it was felt that it was the easiest target. That says something. That says that shooters or these evil people, whatever you want to call them, these attacks, they're learning. They're changing from what they did from back in Columbine. And we're seeing them evolve. They're wearing armor sometimes. They're using long rifles. I'm not going to get into that. They're using them. It is what it is. They are being smarter about how they are accessing these kids, these schools. Look at Florida.
Yeah.
The guy walks in and pulls a fire alarm. And we can talk about that in a little bit, but he pulls a fire alarm because he knows I'll get people out in the hallway. And it's like shooting in a fishbowl. Drops the gun and he walks out because he was school age. I think he was 19. He walked out looking like all the other kids. But how did he get everybody out? He pulled the alarm.
Wow.
Evil is evolving. And we need to match that. Sadly, and we can talk about it if you want to, how parents can make a change. But
yeah, let's do that. Let me interject.
Yeah, we've got to drive a change.
Yes.
What happens is in active shooter attacks, it's a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
And I will tell you now, we get them. 2 weeks, our phones are burning up. After that, Nashville, I could not keep up with emails and phone calls. And I can tell you, we did not do the first contract job after that because everybody just goes, "Oh, okay, never mind." And then summer, and then hey, we're ready for school, ready for sports.
Right.
It is security and safety is not a priority. It hasn't been. It is a superintendents and school boards use it as a platform to get voted on. They appease the parents of the district. But if you get somebody who's got experience, who's got knowledge, and walks in and starts questioning, the only thing they'll say is, "We can't discuss that because security." Well, no, you can't discuss it because you're not prepared.
Yeah.
You can't discuss it because you know you're wrong.
You're wrong. Exactly. And it's a political football. I think one of the things that makes me, that's exactly why we're doing this show right now. You know, the dust is settled. The school year is back. Nobody's talking about school safety. Nobody's talking about how to keep kids safe at school anymore. It's almost like we have amnesia. It's like, hey, wait a minute. No, this is a real risk. And I've been saying for a long time, Stutes, and I know we're in agreement on this. If we wanted to make our kids safe at school, we could do it. Absolutely. We could harden these targets and make this a very bad choice for these mentally ill, violent criminals who intend harm for our school kids. And, so I've been saying it a long time. We could make these targets very hardened. We could eliminate this threat, virtually eliminate the threat. You can't stop it entirely, but there's a lot of ways to slow it down and prevent it. What would it take to get that done? What would it take to get that done?
So there's two parts to it. One part I'm very familiar with and one part I'm not, so I stay away from. Obviously, there is a mental health issue. And whether it's because kids don't have dads involved, because I don't care what it is. That's not my area of expertise. Let the mental health experts. That is a big piece, though. We have that because when you and I were growing up, we had guns. I have a gun in the back of my truck from going hunting before school. Nobody cared. We didn't shoot anybody. So there's definitely there's an evolution in the mental health side. But again, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. That is not my area of expertise.
It's not, but you hit on a point that's really important, right? I think what we're discovering so far is that the vast majority of these perpetrators of this violence are fatherless, right? Or have some kind of abusive relationship with their father. They are typically on some kind of medication or multiple medications, and they have previous emotional, mental illness or disturbance. So we can predict this. Like, we know who the general perpetrators are, and we've got to get serious about what that looks like to fix those problems. But and I think your side of the equation is just as important, and it may help slow things down so that we can fix more of the mental health issues that we're facing. But
absolutely. So here's what I tell people. The superintendent and the school board control the purse strings. They control the money of the district. They control the policy of the district, right? Starting off with your school board, and I don't want to make it sound, I don't want to take away from what it is, but it's pretty much the lowest form of the election process. I mean, it's the school board. It is at a local school district level. It's not even at a city level sometimes in a big city. It's broken it up. So your school board should be held directly accountable for any security at that school. They can control who they hire, the money that's allocated, the budget. And I understand there are budget constraints. There are also grants, funds. I have had school districts come to me and go, we can't afford you and your team. Okay, let's talk about this. And I went in and trained them for a very discounted rate. I don't make it a habit because I do have a business to run, but there's no excuse not to have training. None at all. Whether it's my company or any other company, there's no excuse. We have to hold them accountable, but generally the school board is a popularity contest. There's a very little turnout by the voters, and they control a lot of what goes on with these kids in the schools. Yeah. The next is the superintendent, and who does the superintendent report to? The school board. They have the right to execute the contract. They have the right to terminate the contract with the superintendent, right? He is a contracted employee within that school district.
Yeah.
Those people need to be held accountable, and people need to be going. Parents need to go to these meetings and say, what are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah. Don't give me the bullshit. We've improved security. Okay, you improved security. We have bullet-resistant glass on the front of the schools. What about the side and back? What about all the classroom exits? They just put a fence in at a local school here, and I haven't put anything out about it, and I'm not going to because I don't want to hurt the children. But they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on wrought iron fence, 6-foot wrought iron fence, and they've left pieces that has a 4-foot cyclone fence with a walk-through gate. And that walk-through gate, within 50 feet, I could access 2 doors into an entire elementary campus. If I go another 100 feet, I have 4 more doors. So I've got 6 doors total, not including windows. I can promise you they are not bullet-resistant glass. They are not 3M filmed glass. There's 1 security camera on the east side of the building. The chance of you seeing someone going in before they gain access, and so we're spending all this money. It looks good, that's fine. They've got 30-second delays on the gates. Anybody can drive through once the gate's activated and somewhere the badge goes in. You pull up right behind them. They've got bolsters next to them where literally you can just hop right over the fence. It's the biggest waste of money I've seen. Yet, the school district that I'm referring to is a guardian district. So in Texas, we have a guardian program. State Senate approved. Basically, these guardians can go in and teachers volunteer. They have to be concealed carriers. They have to go through psychological testing, a few other things. And then they go through a 16-hour course, and they're allowed to carry guns on campus, which is great. But they give them 16 hours of training and then basically say, okay, we'll give you a stipend to go to the range every month or every couple months. In my eyes, and in a few other people, you need a minimum of 40 hours initial training.
Yeah.
You need quarterly training, at least a full day, whether it's flat range, shoot house, combination, stress drills, things like that. You're putting people in, and you want to advertise that this school is protected by potential guardians and teachers with guns, but you don't give them the tools to be able to operate in a real world environment. You're asking some extra. It's like giving an LTC to somebody and somebody immediately thinks, well, I'm a proficient shooter and I can handle anything. No, that's a 4-hour course in the state of Texas, and you went out and shot something that I can shoot blindfolded, one-handed, and it's irrelevant. A piece of paper doesn't make you anything.
Right, and it's not real world. It's not active in the real world, and I think that's part of this. You mentioned it, right? We need to hold our board members accountable. We need to hold our superintendents accountable. We need to hold because these events now are foreseeable. From a legal perspective now, enough of them have happened now that we could say that this is likely, right? This is the probability now. We're all responsible. So the level of responsibility and legal liability for school administrators and board members, in my opinion, should be at an all-time high. So the question is, and I've been to these board meetings, Stutes, and you probably have too. And you get time at the mic, you sign up to speak at the mic, and for public comment, right? And in many cases, there are many adversarial relationships between local school boards and residents, parents, concerned parents. I have experienced that firsthand in Colorado. In fact, my very first experience with the school board was so disappointing because my father was a career educator in his day, and I thought there was a mutual respect going on, but there really isn't.
No.
When you go in as a parent, how do we keep this issue front and center and hold them accountable? So, for example, we might say, hey, we demand that you do a threat assessment for the school district and then report back to us your findings so that we can then take action to protect our kids. How do we do that? Do we have to do it in mass? Do we need to coordinate people to go to the school boards?
So you've got to stay in front of them. You can't just be one person. You need a group of people consistently there. As much as I'm not a fan of the media, you need the media there because the media tends to make these elected officials nervous. They tend to respond a little better if they know they're on camera and they know that this is going to be on the nightly news.
Yeah.
The other thing is election time. When it's election time, elect the right people, not the popular people. The last election they had in my area for school board, I had 3 or 4 school board people that were looking to they were campaigning and they were going for the positions, a couple open positions. They all wanted to talk about active shooter response. Spent an hour and a half, 2 hours with each one of them, talking to them on conference calls, blah, blah, blah. 2 or 3 got elected, and they have not implemented the first thing that they said they would. But it was a good platform for them, but it was a popularity contest is all it was. A couple of them are wealthy. They're known in the area. I live in one of these areas that, I guess it's probably everywhere. You've got these people, the popular hierarchy, they've got the nicer house, they've got the beach house, they've got the lake house, they've got all this. And so people tend to want to flock to that. And that's who they voted for. And again, the vote's minimal. If you've got 10,000 people in your city, you may get, if you're lucky, 1,000 people, maybe, and generally not that many. It's very small school board election. Parents need to understand the importance of who they elect, and then they need to elect the right people.
Yeah.
But the immediate is a large group of people start talking, organizing, and going up there and educate yourself. It's out there. You can look at FBI statistics, Homeland Security statistics. You can look at it and go, okay, when was the last one? How did it happen? What can we learn from this? People can email me. We can schedule a call and say, okay, let's talk about this. And what are your concerns? There's so much information out there that you can take. The school board is going to say, we can't discuss that. That's security. I agree, you can't. But you need to give some type of an answer. And you need to understand that we're looking and you're not doing a very good job. Texas came out and they passed a resolution a couple months ago requiring armed officers to be at every school campus. That's great. There's also contingency in that you can file with the state to not have to do that because you don't have the funds in your budget for it. So they say, yes, you have to, but if you don't have the money, we're not going to make it.
Right.
They said years ago, oh, you have to have an IFAC, a stop the bleed kit, something. Okay, great. They didn't never say how many. So basically the schools around here, large school, couple thousand kids in a high school, if there's 5 AEDs in the whole school, they have 5 tourniquets and 5 kits. That's it.
Wow.
I'll tell you right now, that is just not enough. I mean, I want a full blowout kit if something goes down.
Yeah.
If I'm a teacher, I at least want to have a IFAC with me in here. We build them, we custom do them for clients, and we can get into all that. But you need to be prepared. You need to be prepared to save yourself. But it starts holding the school board accountable and holding the superintendent accountable. And if you have them, you get the media involved. And if they still aren't doing it, then next election, you get them out. And you get the right people in there that aren't just going to sell this big dream. They're actually going to go, you know what? We're going to make a difference here. I did a threat assessment for an elementary school a few years ago. A finding was they had a 4-foot chain link fence around the back, complete open access into the campus, and that's where the kids, and it was remote, 120 yards from the main building, where the kids went to recess. No privacy fence, no privacy slats, wasn't even 6 foot tall. I said, do you realize, for one thing, it's like shooting into a fishbowl if somebody wants to drive by here. The other thing is look at the liability for K&R, kidnap and ransom, or whether it's just a kidnap, or it's just a sexual abduction, or whether it's a parent that lost custodial rights that's going in and snatching their kid.
Right.
The teacher can't get to help fast enough, and y'all have left this open. It's a huge finding out in the open here. And you know, for 3 years, they never addressed it. I said, put a privacy fence up. A couple $1,000, 6 foot wood slat, nobody can see in. You need you need people to not be able to see what kids there and how many kids are there.
Yep.
And it's not just a shooting problem; it is a total security issue.
That's right.
They did nothing with it, nothing at all.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because, and I let's pivot to that a little bit, because. Well, thanks for joining us for part 1 of the series on school safety with Brian Stutes. Tune in next time for part 2.